and it's my real pleasure and honor to welcome Regina here today. Regina is Vice President of Drug Product at Samsung Biologics, and there she's leading the aseptic fill finish facilities. Prior to that, she was leading the small drug substance manufacturing unit of Samsung, and brings with her a broad wealth of experience in project management, tech transfers, and other important parts of being an executive member of Samsung. Regina is going to talk in her presentation about how Samsung has been working closely with clients and regulatory agencies to guarantee a resilient supply of raw materials and deliver pharmaceutical medicines on time through a multi-sourcing strategy. So Regina, with this, I'm really looking forward to your presentation, and I'm handing over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Sven, for introducing me. It is my honor to speak to you today as one of the plenary speakers. Today, I would like to talk about how COVID-19 changed the manufacturing environment and how multi-sourcing has become a key strategy for every part of the pharma and biopharma business in order to ensure reliable supply of medicines to patients worldwide. Ever since the outbreak of COVID cases in December 2019, COVID-19 has created havoc in our everyday lives and changed the business environment drastically. To control the spread of virus, workers could not work in person, causing strain on the global supply chain. Ports could not handle required import-export volumes due to staff restrictions. Warehouses remain in full capacity due to delay in shipping activities. Because of these reasons, the cost of shipping almost quadrupled since last February, according to the Global Container Index. Still, only about 44% of the containers arrive on time to ports. In 2020 alone, the world economy shrank about 3.5%, and trading reduced by over 5.3%. Over 94% of the Fortune 1000 companies are seeing supply chain disruptions. Over 75% of those companies have had negative or strongly negative impacts on their business, which created a strong, lasting impact to about 55% of the companies downgrading their overall growth outlook. The pharma sector's supply chain went through even greater changes with the need for an unprecedented volume of COVID vaccines and treatment medicines. Manufacturing capacity and raw material shortages were felt painfully by everyone working in this sector. The COVID-19 virus infected over 173 million people worldwide and has resulted in 3.7 million deaths. About 2 out of 100 people infected died from COVID-19 virus, and many others face long-term side effects, as you know. In order to achieve herd immunity globally, about 11 billion doses of vaccines are needed worldwide, since the world population is close to about 8 billion people. This does not consider the booster shots that are possibly needed after 1 year of a second shot of vaccines. With phenomenon that some wealthy countries are pre-purchasing at double or triple the amount of vaccines than what they need, the needs for finished vaccine vials exceed well above 1.1 billion vials. With such great demand, the companies with COVID products could not secure sufficient manufacturing capacity in-house and had to find CMO partners in order to put their products to market in a timely manner. However, raw material supply could not keep up with the increased manufacturing activities, as you know. With operation warp speed, priority of raw materials were put on the COVID-19 vaccines and medicines. As a result, the production, supply of other therapeutics are also in jeopardy. Robust mitigation plans had to be put in place in order to maintain reliable manufacturing and supply of vaccines and medicines to patients. Multi-sourcing is one of the most relevant and mitigation actions that many companies are putting in place nowadays. Although one could probably think of many other risks associated with steady supply of vaccines and medicines to patients, the highest risk is manufacturing interruption. Since the highest priority of manufacturer, regardless of whether you are a pharma company or CMO, is to provide reliable, on-time supply of high-quality manufactured products, companies are assessing risks, putting mitigation actions in place. Manufacturing interruption due to COVID-19 can be twofold. One is due to the spread of a disease and ceasing of operation. The other is necessary raw materials not being available on time due to shortage or supply chain issues. In either case, multi-sourcing is the key strategy. In order to resolve the operational risk, multi-sourcing of the manufacturing site is used. Many pharma companies identify multiple outsourcing partners in various regions to supply their products instead of relying on one manufacturing source. Manufacturing sites like CMOs are implementing their own multi-sourcing strategies to ensure manufacturing activities are not interrupted. At Samsung Biologics, we have a multi-vendor sourcing strategies in place and look for alternate processing options to overcome material shortages. So let's look at the operations risks that require multi-sourcing of manufacturing. In-house carries many risks that were potentially non-existent before the COVID-19 pandemic. The risks include spread of a virus among the operators, forcing their in-house manufacturing to halt operation for an extended period of time. Transportation lines for their raw materials being crippled. With increased market demand, existing in-house capacity is not sufficient, and they don't have sufficient time or money to build a new facility. These risks can be overcome by partnering with the qualified CMOs. Often the partnership can bring synergy that prompts better results than in-house manufacturing. First, by using multi-sourcing of manufacturing facilities using CMOs, companies can spread out the risks, as the multiple locations can reduce the overall impact of any one of the risks that they see. Second, companies can eliminate the risks of capital investment and bring more products to market faster using CMOs. In addition, by introducing expertise of a quality CMO, companies can expand their knowledge, enable scale up, as well as adopt new processing options that are more optimized for their product. CMOs with their wide range of buying power can often resolve any supply risks that companies can face on their own. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 vaccines and antibody treatment and medicines, the biggest demand is around COVID-19 vaccines and antibody treatments. And however, close to about 60% of pharma companies are partnering with the CDMOs, regardless of the category of their product. The biggest change and the risks brought by COVID-19, as mentioned before, is the shortage of raw materials. I've listed in this slide some of those raw materials with their respective lead times. Before COVID-19, the longest lead time Samsung Biologics saw was about 4 to 5 months. This enabled us to perform tech transfer within about 6 months time frame. However, after COVID-19, the same raw material lead time is over 12 months. And recently, we were even told by a raw material supplier that what we ordered about 12 months ago will be delivered 14 months later, instead of what they initially predicted at the time of our PO, the purchase order. That is exceeding about 26 months. We cannot fully confirm the duration of the tech transfer if critical materials are delayed as such. So at Samsung Biologics, we developed raw material strategies that enable us to mitigate such risks. Of course, we had to work very closely with our clients to implement these strategies. We looked at all of the raw materials we used holistically, assessed and identified raw materials at risk. We defined risk levels and proposed the right strategies for each case. Categories of the strategies are multi-vendor sourcing, alternate single-use materials, stainless steel systems, and platform settings. I'll talk about in more details in the following pages. For multi-vendor sourcing, it is important to understand that applied raw materials are custom single-use assemblies. We focus on the custom assemblies since they usually have the longest lead time and highest risk to the manufacturing interruptions. As a primary custom single-use assembly vendor could not supply raw materials in a reasonable time frame, we found secondary and tertiary vendors who could assemble and gamma irradiate use the same raw material components. We then quickly qualified the vendors and utilized them in the current commercial manufacturing processes. The alternate vendor assemblies were added using change control working closely with the client. By implementing the secondary and tertiary vendors, we're able to avoid manufacturing interruption of commercial products and delivered products to clients on time. Now, for new products, we are putting all 3 vendor assemblies in the initial phase of the project to ensure any of the 3 assemblies can be used from the beginning. Also, one of the alternate vendor has the local site and therefore can shorten the delivery even further. Here I am presenting a test case where we introduced the secondary and the tertiary suppliers for the single-use filter assembly. As you see, As you see in the slide, it took 6 weeks from the start of the single-use filter assembly. 6 weeks from the start of the initial discussion to the implementation of the secondary supplier assembly, and 13 weeks for the tertiary assembly to be implemented, saving about 11 batches being potentially impacted by delay of the primary supplier assembly. For alternate single-use materials, the applied raw materials are mixer bags, plastic bottles, and surge bags. We introduced ready-to-use plastic bottles or other bags in lieu of primary bags of consideration. The strategy was implemented primarily for development or new clinical products, since in-depth study to change the commercial product was going to take too long for our scheduled runs. However, by reassessing the alternate raw materials for the development or new clinical products, we were able to secure the right raw materials for the commercial products also. As part of alternate single-use materials, we also introduced another single-use mixing system. By adding new system into the DP site, we now have an option to use bags in the DS inventory as well as order new bags with a shorter lead time. So I'm noticing the actual slides are quite, it's a little bit outdated, so it may not align properly. So one aspect that differentiates Samsung Biologics from other CMOs is the stainless steel capability. We have a various size of the built-in stainless steel tanks, as well as the stainless steel portable vessels and stainless steel filling lines. We purchased and validated these stainless steel systems during the initial phase of the facility building. Although the stainless steel system requires extra prep time for CIP and SIP, it has been a great alternate option to ensure that we don't have the manufacturing interruption due to single-use raw materials. Since COVID-19, Samsung Biologics has successfully implemented stainless steel and hybrid systems to many DP projects so far. So the last strategy that I'm going to talk about is the setting up of a platform to enable fast tech transfer and production. Samsung Biologics established a platform process and secured sufficient raw material inventory to bring new projects within 6 months and fill ER and PPQ. This includes platform single-use systems as well as a primary packaging components. Of course, any client who wants to bring their product earlier to the market using our platform process has to assess the adaptability of their product with the Samsung team. But to our client, this platform option will provide an opportunity to manufacture the products earlier than otherwise possible. So in conclusion, the multi-sourcing trend in the pharma industry has been a critical aspect to ensure reliable supply of medicines to patients. Two kinds of multi-sourcing can be seen. One is multi-sourcing of manufacturing sites, and the other is multi-sourcing of raw material by manufacturers. Pharma companies have been leveraging qualified and capable CMOs like Samsung Biologics to deliver their life-saving drugs to patients in need even before the pandemic. With the pandemic, the overall rate of dependency on a CMO has increased, and we expect to see even further increase due to positive synergy and additional value that a CMO can bring to the client. As the world's largest CMO with a state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities, experienced experts, and end-to-end service offerings, we are a perfect partner to attain the pharma sector's mission to reliably bring the highest quality medicines to patients worldwide. Thank you, for listening today. Now I'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Regina. Really highly appreciate all of your and Samsung Biologics activities to assure continued supply during this crisis. And that's probably a moment where I can really thank everyone in our industry, how proud I am of how we stepped up at the plate 18 months ago in really setting something up which at least I would have not envisioned being possible in continuing assuring supply of our existing medicines, plus from scratch developing the vaccine supply, something really demonstrates the capability and the commitment of the colleagues and of our industry. So big thank you. And certainly Regina and Samsung Biologics play an important role here.
Thank you.
So there are a few questions, and I can pick them in no particular order, if that's okay with you, Regina. Read them and you may answer, but you can also look at it. So the first one I'm personally also quite interested in. Do you have any feedback from the regulatory bodies, the EMA, the US FDA, about alternative single-use materials for the same drug formulation?
Yeah, so the assessment had to occur very carefully through the detailed risk assessment and before we actually implemented these changes. And so, one of those limitations were utilizing same components. So meaning that we use the same filters, same hoses, same materials, so the tubings and whatnot, and that only the assembly was done by a different vendor. And so from that perspective, really nothing changed, and that the changes were and then notified to the regulatory bodies through our clients. So, so far we have not had any feedback or impact to any of the current filings yet.
Thank you. Julia asked a question, what's your expectations regarding raw material order lead times when the pandemic COVID situation will be behind us?
I'm very hopeful. And that, I know that even suppliers have been working very hard to open up new facilities to be able to supply more raw materials on time. Although, so far the success has not been actually realized yet. So, but I'm very hopeful that once the COVID situation gets better, that we can go back to our ideal situation where we can pick and choose whatever we want to, and even go single sourcing as we used to. But multi-sourcing strategy, having that actually, taught us a lot of lessons that, it is a good idea to not, have a multiple options in place for the raw materials.
Thank you. And that's actually a nice segue into a question Anastasia asked. Can you tell us more about the multi-sourcing strategy? How is it organized, and why was it the best choice given the circumstances?
So, the best choice, it has to be actually evaluated case by case. So it is difficult to generalize. And today I had to generalize in order to present to you guys. But each case is very different. And so, first of all, identifying risk was very important because clients do not understand, oftentimes do not understand the current raw material situation and what impact it has on their product, right? And so we have to be proactive in order to identify those risks and initiate conversation with our clients about the potential risks and prepare for the changes of their processes. And so the best choice is something that I can't really answer. It's up to the case by case as per the client and the project.
But if I may add here, I think at least in our case, we quite often weren't even aware of how dependent we are on a single, second or third tier supplier. And I think the pandemic situation has opened our eyes on that, call it, dependency, and with that potential risk for our ability to supply product, something which I would have liked achieving differently, but it certainly will make us more resilient in the future. And I think that's where you are working as well. There was another question here from Stanislav asking about the COVID vaccine manufacturing. Was there any structural changes to Samsung Biologics entailed by this demand?
No, actually, there's no structural changes. in order to supply the needs for the COVID vaccine. In fact, the product that we're serving fits very well with the current system. We were lucky to have a spare capacity with recently newly opened facilities. So that would fit very well with the current need. So no changes.
Thanks, Regina. Natalia asked a follow-on question from a previous answer where you mentioned that you've been working with regulatory agencies. Can you share your experience on the most difficult issues in interactions with these bodies? So some of your horror stories.
Like I said, so far there has not been any feedback yet from agencies with regards to this particular changes. So it is difficult to answer that question.
I'd say it's positive.
Yeah, so far.
If there are no questions back, isn't that good?
Yes, it is.
Good.
Any other questions?
Exactly. Not in the chat, so let's see. Anybody else? Any other question? If that's not the case, then Regina, really thank you so much for your presentation, for sharing your insights, and as I mentioned before, to you and your whole team, Samsung Biologics, for helping all of us to assure reliable supply of our medicines to patients around the world. So a big thank you.